Hello. Hello, everyone. Hi. Hello. Welcome to the Emo Social Club podcast. I am Brian, as every week.
I am Lizzie, as also every week. And we have two super special guests here with us tonight. If you guys just wanted to introduce yourselves.
Oh, I'm going first? Okay. I'm Kia. I'm Kia.
And I'm Matty.
We are live tonight on Twitch, and we are raising funds for Black Lives Matter Chicago. This is a special episode. We wanted to have a round table and bring some attention to all the protests that are happening across the country, give kind of a local Chicago-specific take on those protests, while also raising money for our local chapter of Black Lives Matter. I do want to thank Courtney, who's in the chat right now, who donated $50 before we started recording. So thank you, Courtney, for your donation. We are trying to raise $300 for the cause. So if you have anything, you can donate at links on our social media, or if you're on Twitch, you can type _donate, and it will give you the link in order to donate at that link. Yes. So if you guys want to talk a little bit about your experience with the protests, just so we all know, what is going on with you, and how have you been experiencing all the things that have been going on right now?
Yeah. Okay. So I attended the protest in Aurora. I kind of had an idea of what to expect. So I've tried to make the necessary preparations going into this in terms of keeping in mind my safety, things, to keep in mind in the back of my mind, because I'm also bringing my sister as well. And she had never been to a protest. So just kind of going in, we came in with an open mind, making sure that, we're very self-aware. And we came in, I brought my friend along as well. I didn't mention that as well. I brought my friend and I brought my sister. And we came in and we instantly found the crowd that we were there for. And, we were peacefully protesting. We had our signs, we were kind of bonding. And then I just happened to look over, because we were in the middle of the intersection for, I think it was like Indian Trail and New York or something like that. And I just so happened to look over and I saw another half of the crowd come in, who was kind of walking from the Aurora Outlet Mall, the Chicago Premium Outlet Mall, to where we were standing. So we've doubled that. And we were protesting in front of the Aurora Police Station. Again, all very peaceful. In fact, a couple of the officers came out and were standing on the roofs and watching us while we were protesting. And for the most part, again, it was very peaceful. And we all just kind of came together and to speak out about these issues.
Very cool. Yeah. The protest I attended was in Homewood down here. First protest I've ever done. So I was very anxious about that, but it was a very positive experience. The police around here were actually helping us out. We had a few officers even help escort us across the streets. So that was really awesome. Public Works blocked off some streets for us, and the very positive experience gave me a lot of hope in my community.
So how has kind of seeing like the different media coverage going on here, how has that impacted you guys? I know at least on Twitter, versus like, normal local and, national news, it's been trying to tell a different story for protesters, of course, with, the looting and the rioting as well. But if you go on like, Twitter or Facebook, you kind of get like a huge overwhelming hodgepodge of, people's first encounters of, more police brutality and them covering up like their badges and all these other things. How has that kind of affected your viewpoint on these protests and overall just kind of what's going on right now in society with that?
So in my opinion, it's been very overwhelming, and it's gotten so concerning to the point where um to my basic work functions, I'm unable to concentrate due to everything that's kind of been going on and taking place. Even locally, things that have not been broadcasted, I've seen with my own eyes, and white supremacy and things like that. So the thing is, the media has somehow portrayed this image of the protests to be violent. Over the years, even where we were protesting Black Lives Matter, the first go around, like 2014 or something like that, they were always portraying us as violent and that we were trying to riot. So it didn't come as a surprise that they tried to push that narrative again. But what's really disappointing was that the most of the violence and the damage and things like that were not actually from the peaceful protesters. It came from white supremacists. So there are people that are coming in and basically causing a bunch of ruckus and damage. And they have nothing to do with the actual movement. And so, I'm not sure if you guys have seen the media coverage with Naperville and the white supremacists over there, spray painting and rioting and doing whatever that they do over there. But it's now become an issue because Black Lives Matter and Black people are getting blamed for these things when we have nothing to do with it. And it's really hard to just push those things aside and kind of focus on what you need to do day to day, because now you're kind of noticing the weird looks people are giving you. And, it's a really uncomfortable situation, but I'm hoping that this all kind of blows over and that people actually see the truth and really stand up for these issues and not believe everything that the media is trying to portray.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And that was a lot of my anxieties doing this for the first time. I didn't know the environment would be, if it would be a positive experience or if it was going to be a violent one. And now I can say that the vast, vast, vast majority of the people out there, the ones who are really out there for the cause, aren't trying to cause destruction to the city. Not the point at all. They're just trying to get a message heard. And one of the only ways I can think of, we've done this whole thing of Colin Kaepernick and the kneeling wasn't good enough to get the message out. We've done this whole thing with just so many different things we've tried over the years, tried peaceful protesting, and finally something's worked. And I think what has been a bit different this time is having social media be much bigger so that we're not only seeing what the news presents, we're seeing also things just from average, ordinary people. Like, look at this protest. You see that everything was fine until other sources escalated it. So I'm definitely glad that social media has played a bigger role in everything today. Now we're seeing more angles about what's going on.
I've been having a lot of my anxiety has not been from any conversations I've actually had, but it is about the expectation that there are conversations I'm going to have with people who are maybe on the side. A lot of posts I see are like, it is now time to be actively anti-racist, not just not racist. And it's like, yeah, that pretty much describes a lot of people I know, especially adults, especially like parents of friends, parents of people that are close to me. And it's like, yeah, but that's who I'm going to have these conversations with, of explaining like, no, you don't see that, like, these are the microaggressions. These are the small things that have led to or have become normal or commonplace because of white supremacy and all that. And I have a lot of anxiety of like, I'm going to have to do that. And I know that is like one of my specific roles is like, hey, I need you to understand how these things have affected our society in these ways. Like I was explaining before we got on the stream, I'm very riled up about fascism, and I'm very like, and obviously the news about Antifa is a terrorist organization. I'm like, you moron. But yeah, I don't know. It's a lot of anxiety about that conversation. I'm wondering if you have anything that I can add to say to these people that are me as a person that like would have those conversations. What would you say to me going into that?
I just wanted to add to what you expressed, that you had anxiety talking about these certain issues. I just posted a video prior to this most recent video on my YouTube channel, B Caker Productions. I talked about being Black in the workplace. And for me, I work in corporate America. So this is going to be a different shift versus, you know, being amongst my non-Black peers at any other job like swimming or whatever. But this is a corporate environment. And the level of anxiety that I experience on a day-to-day basis just to avoid being problematic is the anxiety that like I think that it's almost, not to discredit you, but it's uncomparable. Mm-hmm. So like I can't say things a certain way without being perceived as the angry Black woman. Mm-hmm. I can't say when people come up and touch my purple hair. I had purple hair in the video. I had purple braids, and I was actually nervous about wearing them because I didn't want to have that discussion. Mm-hmm. Oh, why is your hair purple? Can I touch it? Can I? And it's just like, it's so uncomfortable. And I haven't figured out a way to address it without being perceived as, oh, she's trying to start something, or, oh, she's trying to be, you know, one of those kind of girls. And, you know, nobody ever wants to be that. And so I wanted to at least acknowledge that I appreciate you actually trying to educate your peers. Because like you said, a lot of people are just like, well, I'm not racist, so that should be good enough. Mm-hmm. But these are things now that we have to figure out how to talk about it. And even if it may make somebody uncomfortable, we still got to bring it up. So I guess my advice to you, like, don't worry about those eggshells. Don't worry about those eggshells. You can't tiptoe around this issue anymore. We can no longer tiptoe around these issues anymore as Black people. So we have to come correct now. We got to let them know, you know, this is no longer acceptable. Just getting by and coasting and not being just not racist is unacceptable. You need to check your peers. You need to talk to them. You need to have these conversations, show them videos, start educating yourself. There's not, for us, there wasn't very many resources about our history, but, you know, maybe there's somebody that can kind of assist you in trying to have these conversations, but these conversations really do need to be had. And I don't think that there's no way we can sugarcoat this anymore, because it's been going on long enough that we've been sugarcoating how we've been treated for years, and how people have been so passive about, you know, how the inequities of our justice system. So like, at this point, we got to just do it.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with that, especially at this point. You know, if you're still thinking those racist thoughts at this point, I think you absolutely know your intent. I don't think it's just ignorance at this point. You know that you're not being fair to people, so you just need to flat out say, no, you can't treat people like that. You've got to be fair.
Yeah, so obviously the conversation about policing, about police brutality, about the fact that this starts and this is continued and this is so much of an issue is because of police brutality and how policing is seen in this country, how police are basically a vehicle of the state that is there to uphold the status quo, not in order to protect the citizens of this country. I'm happy to say that to anyone's face as well, not just on this podcast. That is essentially their role. They are showing that this week. They are proving that point, that they are not here in order to listen to the people. They are here in order to maintain a status that is not going to change anything about our society. But white people generally have a more accepted view of police. They have friends that are police. They have people that they believe are good cops. And it is going to be a really tough conversation to say, this is the role of policing. and we have to pull you back from from the belief that like this is the only experience there is with police, that these are outlier situations, that these are only the things you see on the news, and there will be these things will happen, but they will be a small instance. They are not a common situation. Is that a conversation that conversation's tough? Like, that conversation is really tough to break. White people who don't see it in their day to day, who aren't looking on Twitter, who aren't seeing alternative media than just the news, where they're just reporting the basic information. Is there anything that like a person could speak to about policing that is a specific thing that we can reference about saying this is the actual this is the actual experience that people are having with that, and you need to believe that these stories are true, and these are things that are not just like one thing that happened and was a viral video that was shown across the internet or shown on the news. This is a thing that is happening in our communities, and they are not always filmed, and they are not always going to be seen.
Yeah. So here's the thing for me. For some reason, white people have this narrative. And of course, I feel like I have to say this and give a disclaimer because, of course, people are just going to jump down my throat. Not all white people, but I thought it should go without saying. But,
Look,
some people.
I'll say it. All white people. I'll fucking say it.
So they're going to come on my page later, but whatever.
Come to my page. Spooky Pants 1 on Twitter. I'm not even paying attention to it. I deleted the app from my phone. Fucking come for me. I don't give a fuck. I'm not reading your shit. I don't get notified on my phone. I don't fucking care.
So white people have this narrative where they're like, well, it doesn't happen to me, so it doesn't happen. Mm-hmm. And the thing is, police, like, there's a level of privilege. Oh, I said the P word, privilege, that people have that they don't want to acknowledge. And that's the first and foremost issue. Just because it doesn't happen to you doesn't mean it is not happening. So that was my first point. Also, going back to Amanda Seales, we talked about Amanda Seales earlier on this before we got into it. Amanda Seales had a live with Snoop Dogg today, and she talked about basically how if we changed the way that the police are policing these communities, it would be a much different outcome. And Snoop Dogg brought up his upbringing when he was coming up as a young boy. He was saying that, whenever they get pulled over by the police, if there was like a black cop, he would come out and he would talk to them and be like, hey, I know what you guys are doing. Just cut it out. And he would kind of give them like a little, almost like a mentoring session. And he would get in the car and do whatever he had to do. Like, it was never any hostility. It was almost more of almost like a father-son kind of thing. And if we change that narrative, first of all, I know this sounds insane. Like, this is in an ideal world, of course. But if the police were really trying to serve and protect, you would see that. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I'm not going to say that I've had all horrible interactions with the police. Because first of all, I have a clean record. I've never really had any interactions with the police. The interactions that I did have were negative, but it wasn't because I was being a criminal. And that's another thing that white people like to say is, well, if you weren't doing anything illegal, you wouldn't have any bad experiences with the police. And that's false. Because again, as a Black woman, the police are so quick to remind you that you are Black. Mm-hmm. So, I just think that if we really they won't, but again, in an ideal world, if we took a look at the police and tried to modify some of that and really tried to eliminate the people that are trying to cause issues and be agitators, it would be a much different outcome. And honestly, I think even talking with white people about that and having them understand, yes, just because your uncle is a cop, you're probably going to get a different experience than somebody who, has police constantly coming into their neighborhood who don't know how to handle, who have never had any run-ins or interactions with Black people, and all their experiences with Black people were negative. So naturally, they're going to come in with that kind of mindset. And I just think that if you again, in an ideal world, you can try, but like one day I feel like somebody's going to hear it. Somebody's going to get it. It's going to click for somebody. Somebody's going to realize, oh, everybody's not experiencing what I experienced from my Uncle Jay, or everybody is not experiencing or getting to see that side of my dad, so I just think that we just got to keep talking about it, and we got to again, we can't tiptoe around this anymore. It's here. So I think if we keep talking about it, that's the only way it's going to register. And I mean, maybe they have to hear from multiple different people, but at the end of the day, this conversation has to be had.
Yeah. I think a lot of the issue is that I'm seeing a lot of white people aren't really talking to Black people about the experiences that they're having. It's like I saw a viral thing going around on Facebook, not related to police, but kind of in the same vein of saying, if you've ever been followed around in a store, say I. And I shared it and a bunch of people responded. And that's something that I don't think everyone realizes happens to us. I don't think a lot of it is that they don't talk to enough of us to really get the idea. So what I think needs to happen is we need to diversify our circles. White people need to talk to more Black people and learn about their experiences, and Black people, us too, need to find more white people to educate them on everything going on, and then there'll be more of an understanding about this. A lot of our, everything, racism and everything that goes on is just losing my thought, but racism and everything going on is just because of preconceived notions from just ignorance. And all of that comes from not knowing any better, not talking to enough people to know any better, and never really diversifying. So I think the big thing that comes from this, and it's been great to see a lot of people educating each other on Black experiences and Black lives and all of that. That's been great, but I think that conversation needs to continue. We need to continue educating on our experiences.
I just wanted to add quick to that too. I'm sorry, I'm talking a lot, but these are things that I really just got to get out, because these are things that have been happening for a very, very long time. But to add that, I like how you said that we need to educate our peers. So the thing is, I posted something on my page earlier this morning, and I said, I'm tired. I'm tired of educating my peers, because the thing is like when I explain to you, when you ask me how my day was, and I go, man, and I give you the rundown of my day for real, and you start hearing about these racial issues, and you go, oh, I didn't ask for that. You're supposed to just tell me it's fine and it's okay. We're supposed to move on our day. And the thing is, a lot of people don't want to hear that. They don't want to hear, oh, you know what? I got stopped by the police 3 times this week just because my car just looks a little suspicious, or 3 white women clutched their pearls today and held their purse close to them because I got on an elevator with them. They don't want to hear that. They're like, oh, nope, just change the subject. So the thing is I feel like for me to want to get into that place, because right now, again, I am tired. I don't have the energy. I don't have the time. For me to get to that point where I'm like, okay, let's have this discussion. I need the books that you read, what you think about them. Let's have a dialogue instead of me educating you on my Black experience. And then we can have a dialogue and we can have a discussion. But until then, I just don't want people to get used to the notion of, oh, well, my Black friends should know everything, so I'm going to just go to them to educate myself on whatever issues they're going. And then they can be the spokesperson for all things Black or all things of the culture. And everybody's Black, everybody that is Black or a person of color, they're going to have different experiences. And I think that's important for them to keep in mind, because just because your friend Devontae said that he's perfectly fine in Naperville doesn't mean everybody else is. And I just really want people to keep that in mind, because it's real. It's really real.
Definitely.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I have been feeling very anxious about reaching out to people during the we want people's voices on this podcast, but it's I'm pretty sure you've been getting too many people reaching out to you. There's far too much that's being put on your shoulders, and we're people who are unaware of these issues, or people who are using I've been referring a lot to anecdotal evidence of saying well, this isn't an issue, but now I'm hearing it is an issue, so let me reach out to somebody else and get their anecdotal evidence to prove or disprove what I already know or what I expect. And it's that's not that's no one's responsibility. Google.
Yeah.
Like fucking Google.
Exactly.
Yeah, definitely. I guess I feel a little bit different because I'm still out of my job because of this quarantine and everything. So I have literally nothing better to do than to talk about my experiences and all of that. But I can definitely understand, and I definitely do agree that people need to do more than, you know, just to talk to your one or two Black friends. You need to read books on our experiences and look on the internet. I mean, there's just so much information. It's just easier than ever to get. There's not really an excuse anymore for ignorance.
Amen. And I have a whole YouTube channel. If you want to educate yourself, go to B Caker Productions, start from the very first video that I have, and work your way up so you can get an idea. And then guess what? YouTube will suggest things for you so that you can understand what the hell is going on in America. Because it is not my job to keep educating motherfuckers on what the fuck I'm going through every fucking day. I'm sorry, y'all. It's just so frustrating. It's so frustrating. Yeah. It's tiring. And I really don't understand why people are not registering. There are 5-year-old girls that are understanding this shit. There are 7-year-old girls understanding this shit. White girls understanding this shit. And for some reason, her great grandmother doesn't understand. Her mom doesn't understand. I'm like, wait, how does your mom not understand? But you like, it just doesn't, I just don't understand it. And it's not even the fact of just like, they're truly not getting it. They're truly not grasping it. They don't want to. They don't want to understand.
Yeah.
That means that they're benefiting from the systemic racism. And why give that up when you're benefiting from it? So it's a whole conversation that needs to be had. but also, just I honestly want to say thank you though, but because these are battles that we've been fighting for the longest time. And now it's not funny, but it is funny watching white people get frustrated with their peers because they're not getting it. And we're like, this is the discussion we've had to have for years. This is what we've been trying to get across to your friends for years. And now you're just like, what is wrong with them? Because it's like, yes, that's where our frustration is stemming from. And I'm just like, I just really, I thank you guys for really being patient with that stuff. Maybe there's a certain way that you guys can say it that they'll actually get it, because apparently when we say it, that people don't understand. So I'm just really hoping that this is a new approach, and now people are opening their eyes and opening their ears to these things.
Yeah,
I certainly hope so. Oh, Lizzie, go ahead.
Oh, I mean, I know Elise. I mean, Kia, you know that I live out here in Naperville. I live right next door to you, basically in Aurora, and we went to the same undergraduate college in Naperville. So here, you see it consistently, and when you try to point it out to people, they're just like, "Oh, I don't care," and there's no way for them. It's hard to try to perceive to them like this is why it matters, and people listen to me because I look white presenting, but I'm half Hispanic. So I'm able to use my platform to an extent because, I've had this very unique experience myself where I've been able to have a completely different life experience than some parts of my family. And I see the issues that they have had. And I'm able to take that and bring it to people, be like, hey, did you know that this, can happen in whatever scenario? And sometimes white people would be like, yeah, I sympathize, I empathize, and I can understand that this sucks. And a lot of other times they'll say, I just straight up don't care in this area, especially just because it's so much more affluent. And again, they're profiting off of the systematic racism because they're able to get further ahead. Or like we saw in New York, that one insane white woman who called the police on a Black man bird watching.
Oh my gosh.
And she pretty much it was like a horror movie. People were comparing it to Get Out, where she was like completely normal but being hysterical on the phone to the police.
Yeah.
And to know that that's how in reality, like, you would watch it and you're like, this is a horror movie, it doesn't really happen. But you do have people nowadays, Black creators like Jordan Peele, bringing this out in a way that also white individuals are consuming this media, and they're able to kind of look at it in a different perspective and lens that they would not have done years and years ago. And even now, again, it's still hard to get people to listen and observe more. I mean, a lot of people are comparing some of these protests and the lootings that are happening to the Purge movies. And when those movies came out, I remember I went like opening night to the first one because my friends and I were like hyped about it. And we left.
See, this is so concerning. Every time you talk about like like some horror movie shit, you're just like, oh my god, I'm so excited about it. It's like, Lizzie, please.
But my friends and I had saw this movie in Naperville, one of the movie theaters here. And when we left, it was filled with a bunch of white kids, obviously. And a lot of them were like, I hate this movie. This is stupid because, spoiler alert, if you haven't watched it, it came out in like, I don't know, fucking like 2013 or something, the first one. It's pretty much, you know, everybody who's lower class, which is a lot of minorities, pretty much like saying, fuck this, and coming up and trying to kill the elite people, which are primarily white people, and also people of color who are just like kind of rolling with the systematic racism because they're like, oh, I benefited from it, so I'm just not going to say anything anymore. And people were like, I don't like that. That's just unrealistic. That's stupid. And I think, I mean, obviously, I hope we don't get to that point because that would be a very apocalyptic America. But it feels like it anywhere right now. But if we, you know, kind of compare it to that, it's like it's kind of insane to say that we have to become, and we have to go into such a dire situation in order to just have certain people's voice heard and to have them be seen as an equal individual.
I agree.
Yeah. I think a lot of it, honestly, is that people don't want to admit there's a problem. You know, like, it's so hard to get people to simply say Black Lives Matter. They have to throw in oh, well, all lives matter. And like, of course, all lives matter and everything, but we're focusing on Black lives here. That is where the problem is. And they're having such a problem just accepting that there is something going wrong. I think a lot of it is just willful ignorance, just willfully not wanting to accept it.
It's funny because it's just like now I'm seeing people that are finally waking up, and I'm like, on one side I'm like, yeah, finally, and then another side I'm like, where the hell have you been? Like, I've been telling you stuff. You're like, oh my god, this is awful. We're like, yeah, this is not the first person that has been killed on camera, first Black man that's been killed on camera, and it's just like, so I'm appreciative of the fact that that some people are realizing now that there's an issue. And I'm hoping, again, that we can find ways to communicate to the people that are still not getting it, that this is bad. I think I was listening to Nick Cannon, like it was a stand-up comedy special thing that he had on Black Lives Matter. And he said that he had to explain it to, who was it? I can't remember who it was, but it was another celebrity. And he's like, that's just like going to, he's like, you know how you all say save the whales? He's like, you know, that's like what we're saying, you know, save the Black people. You know, you don't go in talking about fuck all the other fish. We're just saying
right.
Save the whales, like, because they're in danger. And that's the way that they had to get it. And I'm like, what? Like, that's all we had to say for you to understand that Black Lives Matter too? So it's just, I'm hoping that this is really going to open some eyes. Again, with all this violence and stuff. First of all, I was trying not to be that person, but I'm going to go ahead and say it anyway.
Do it.
If we even decided that we wanted to get violent, we built this country for fucking free. If we wanted to get there, we could, but we're not. So the fact of the matter is, for anybody to associate us with violence, Black people are literally the most forgiving group that I've ever seen. We're very forgiving. We've been oppressed for hundreds and hundreds of centuries. And we're still managing to just peacefully let you know that we're still not being treated right. But somehow we're still stereotyped as being violent or, you know, it's just, and I personally feel like that's not fair. That is just not fair. So, but I'm hoping that this approach gets the message across.
I was going to ask you, do you, oh, sorry, Matty, go ahead.
No, I was saying that, I hope so too, or else this is just all going to happen again.
Yeah, I'm wondering, like, do you think that this time, and I mean, I guess I'm asking this question about every other time that's ever happened. So I don't know if it's like this time is different. This time people are going to pay attention. This time we're going to finally topple the state and we're going to get everything solved. But do you feel like this time is different?
I'm trying not to talk all the time because I'm pretty sure they're like, "Oh my God, shut up."
No, listen, I want to not hear my voice basically on this.
I think it's opened some eyes, but my concern is that momentum going to continue? Are we still going to remain outraged? Because I thought, and again, maybe this is just me being oblivious. I thought after this, I'm like, great, we got an understanding, we're good. And you try to go out and go get some food for yourself and you're getting side eyes. I'm like, okay. So I think I think they understand that I think this is what I'm thinking right now. I'm thinking that people are thinking, wow, this video is horrible. And I'm speaking up for him, for that person, for George Floyd. In terms of Black people as a whole, it's still going to take some time because it's almost like we still have to prove that we're still worthy of being treated equal. So I think it's different in a sense, but not for the reasons that we think it's going to be. There might be a change, and I do think that I'm not to say that to discredit the movement. I do think that some people are really going to have a change of heart, and I think that some people are really going to speak out about these issues. But I don't know if I can 100% confidently say that this is really going to be the pivotal moment for us.
Yeah, it's hard to say. I think I can speak in two ways. So, like, in terms of the legal system and the police and everything, I think, yes, this could be a different time. And people in quarantine having nothing better to do, that I honestly think that might have been the reason that they were paying so much attention to it. And we've been seeing all these protests day after day after day. I think it's been 7 days at this point. And now that we see all of the officers have been convicted and everything, that's such a rare thing to happen. So I think in that case, people might be starting to open their eyes and things might be starting to change. But socially, I'm not sure if we're quite there yet. There are people, again, just still willingly being ignorant and willingly not wanting to accept that something's wrong and something's different. And we're having to go through all these avenues to try to explain why things are different. And they're just not wanting to accept it. So that part, I think, might take a bit more for some people. I've seen quite a few people change over to our side, and that's been great. But it's not been as big as I'd hope it'd be.
Yeah, and to add to that too, I noticed that. Well, first of all, I want to commend all these other countries that are standing up against these issues. London, Italy, to name a few. But I'm proud that they're actually saying something, because they could easily go, "Oh, that's America's issue. Like, I don't know what they got going on." Like, but they got to figure it out. But they're speaking up and saying that something is wrong. One thing that I noticed that I was like super geeked about, like I'm a Billie Eilish fan. I saw her post on her page saying, addressing when people say all lives matter. She literally said, and I quote, "Shut the fuck up." And I was like, yes, finally. If Billie Eilish has to tell you to shut the fuck up, so be it. So be it. Because honestly, it's like people are not, it's just, again, people are still not understanding. And like, with everything going on and just the processing rate, it's just crazy. It's just so crazy. And I also think, also to add to that, like some people, I feel personally that because they don't want to be perceived as, or be called out, I guess, are joining the movement just because they don't want to, they just want to kind of avoid the conflict. So that's also what I'm saying is like, you know, there are very well some people that are there because they believe that Black Lives Matter. But there are also some people that are like, I'm just here, or I'm just posting so that nobody calls me out or cancels me or whatever the case may be. You can kind of tell who's posting just to kind of shut people up and who's kind of posting because they genuinely believe Black Lives Matter in their career. I.e. Justin Timberlake has been, you know, black people have pretty much, you know, aided in that career. Eminem, like, you know, so, you know, there's already people in celebrities that have been very adamant on the mistreatment or been vocal about the mistreatment of Black people. So maybe I'm being I don't know, I'm not being anything, but I'm just saying, I think that I just really think that I'm hoping that even if they do decide that they're trying to just do it just because they don't want to be called out, I'm hoping that maybe that's a start for them opening their eyes. But I can only say that we got to do better.
It'll definitely be interesting to see how many people are this adamant and active and everything going on the next time this happens, you know, when it's not like the trendy thing to do. So I'm definitely curious to see what happens for next time.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't want another Black man or woman, because we can't say Black man anymore, because Sandra Bland was, you know, Breonna Taylor was sitting in her house or in her home. She was sleeping. She was sleeping when she was killed by the police. And Etiana Jefferson was playing video games with her nephew when she was killed by the police in her home. So I'm hoping, and again, this might just be me being overly optimistic, I'm hoping that was the last one. I'm hoping that was the last one that we got to talk about. So
I do want to get back to some celebrities trying to you know, put out their support or possibly faux support and allyship out there. I know at least Matty, you are in a lot of like the music scene here in like Chicago in the area. How have you seen some of these, you know, some of these other local bands or local figures, or even, you know, on a larger platform, more national acts, have you seen them be more supportive, or has it been something that has been, you kind of have to push them a little bit? I do know that some people from Out of Context, the production company out here, puts on a lot of the pop punk shows, Caitlin and Michelle, they've been pretty adamant on calling out a lot of bands that they have had on their bills recently and saying what is going on, because they did find one band that publicly posted on their Instagram, All Lives Matter, and they immediately like sent it through Twitter and said, do not put this band on your bills once quarantine ends and everything. Have you found, you know, anything like that, or have you found a lot more support, or do you feel like people are just giving you that faux allyship?
Honestly, I can tell when it's genuine and when it's real. When it's genuine and when it's not genuine. The people who have always treated me with respect and always been on my side for things and everything, I know I can trust, and I know they're being genuine. Those who are just trying to make a statement because they felt forced to and everything, I can definitely tell that. I will say that I believe more people have been actively supporting me for a while and everything. So I haven't really lost faith in many people. But I can kind of sympathize for people too. You know, what I've seen a lot of people say is, I've been pondering upon what to say. I don't really know what to say. And that's a hard thing. You know, what are you supposed to say in a little statement about a systemic problem? Like, of course, Black Lives Matter. And of course, I care about these people. Do I really need to confirm it? Like, some people were frustrated that Paramore took a few days to make a statement. Yet me, being as in love with Hayley Williams as I am, I know for a fact that Hayley's always been on my side, and she's always talked about Black figures, and she's always, you know, been a supporter of us, and always done her job to be an ally. So I didn't really need a statement with that. So I can kind of sympathize with not really understanding, not really knowing what to say or how to say it and everything like that. I don't know. It's interesting that this is it's become this thing where you like have to say a statement or you're considered a bad person. Like I know if you really cared.
Yeah, I feel like I've been conflicted about it because I don't know. I've taken a break from a lot of social media because with coronavirus and everything, I've just been like, mentally, I don't want to deal with this. This week has then changed that because it's like, if you're not active, your message is silence, and silence now is equal to you don't stand for this message. And it's like, in the past, if you have stood for the message, in the past, if you have done anything, if you have participated in anything in the past, that's fine, but you still need to do something right now. You still need to make an act of something right now. And I go back and forth on it, where it's like, I kind of disagree with that. I think that actions are louder than words. So if you're doing the actions, the words kind of are secondary. If you're showing up, every other day of the year, then this week is like another time to show up. But if you've already shown up, then you're proving that you are an ally. I don't necessarily think that just posting something, or all of these fucking brands sending me emails saying, hey, I just want you to know where we stand on this. It's like, well, first of all, right. I don't think you're going to send me an email just like, I don't know, guys. Are we really so sure? Like, I don't think I'm going to get that from like DSW, like it to me, all of it in a way rings as true and all of it rings as hollow. Like, I don't really know any of it that is in a way authentic, because unless somebody is saying, this is how I'm voting, this is how I am showing up to local elections, I am participating in city council meetings, I am joining with people that I know for Black Lives Matter, showing up to these meetings and speaking their mind and speaking what is happening, then I don't know that just like posting something right now is really showing that you are that all year round. But at the same time, Matty, I was like, when Lizzie said you were coming on, I'm like, oh, he's the biggest Paramore fan. So
I love Paramore too. Like, Paramore been around for a minute, and I'm just like, I love Hayley Williams.
Same. I'm absolutely obsessed, and I would read all of your tweets.
Only Hayley Williams stands on this podcast.
Absolutely. And I was
like,
not
have those awful people last week who were like, Hayley Williams just looks like every other white girl, and we were like,
no, thank you.
You need to social media.
No thanks. No,
sir.
But it's like, of course, I know that Hayley Williams is on the right side of history, is an ally, if not an advocate. And it's like, do we need Hayley Williams? Do we need Paramore? Do we need that group of people to say anything in order for us to believe it? And so therefore it's like, the people forcing that to come out and forcing these people to say something, therefore is like a coerced response to me. And it's not like if you're out there doing stuff, you don't need to be held accountable for what you're doing. You don't need to be accountable for posting on Instagram, yeah, I'm on this, or writing something in your notes app and taking a screenshot and posting it on Twitter. It's those are not the actions that need to be done necessarily. And I kind of feel that way about the Black Square yesterday on Blackout Tuesday. And I'm like, everybody's so mad about this fucking thing. And I'm like, I understand the anger. I understand that like there was the logistical thing about the hashtag being used on it. But I'm like, everybody's trying. Nobody's 100% sure what to do. And obviously nothing that I post on Instagram is going to make a difference in the actual reality of our lives. We are organizing as far as the protest goes, but like, we still need to show up and vote. We still need to participate outside of just a protest. We still need to participate as our elected officials are passing legislation. As I think it was actually the end of the day yesterday that there was a piece of legislation that needed to be commented on for the CPD and CPS working together. So I saw that going around a lot. It's like, well, where is this the other 364 days of the year when these things are happening in our local government, and where are we when those things are coming up?
I think right now is a time where a lot more people are starting to get more active and know that a lot of those things are pretty accessible to the public. We were talking about this last night in our stream as we were going over some protest photos from the downtown Naperville protests, and looking at when you, because Brian also sent me a document, asked me for my opinion on it, and when you read it, it does tell you that anybody can have this information. Next to the fact that if you are at least a reporter, or if you are pretty much almost anybody in the public, you can qualify and use the FOIA Act, which is the Freedom of Information Act, which allows you to basically fill out some paperwork, state why you just want to look some stuff up, and it will tell, and you can get information from the government about a court case. For example, I was listening to a podcast where somebody had said that their father was in some original like Vietnam protests back in the day at I forgot what university, but like one of those prestigious universities people always talk about that you can never probably get into really unless you had old money. And they were saying that one of their father's friends had asked her father, like, oh, did you know that like the FBI was like watching you like very casually? And he was like, the fuck are you talking about? So he filed the Freedom of Information Act, and while they can redact some things, as we saw with a lot of the Trump impeachment, like things are just blacked out and you're like, what's the point in this? You're wasting paper, killing the trees. And they he saw that he had 200 pages worth of him as like a young adult in college, just because he attended these protests for people not to get drafted unwillingly to go fight, honestly, like a pointless war in Vietnam. My grandpa won't be happy about that, but it's the truth. And it's something that everyone can do. So you can also do that for yourself. You can do it for family members. You can do it for, most things that are going on. It could take a while, but you are privileged to that information as an American citizen, whether or not they necessarily want to treat you equally, which is fucking awful. You can still get that other information. And if that's something you would want to look into to do, you should definitely do it. And I think because there's been so much more traction, that's why people are starting to get involved. I mean, Minneapolis, their school system pretty much said, you're severing ties with the police department. We can't have them here. And
Mm.
it's calling for a lot of similar reactions to people in other cities, especially larger cities like ours, who also have a large minority demographic. And when it comes down to like also calling for defunding the police, you hear defunding and you think, oh, it means they're going to go away and we're going to have complete anarchy, but that's not really what it is, because there's not a lot of educational basis on it. And there's a lot of infographics going around where people are taking either books or podcasts or articles that they've done and research, and making, I know that illustrator Michaela Jane has been starting to do a series where she just illustrates little things about protesting, about defunding the police and all these different legislative change, so it's a little bit more easy to digest for people and to understand. And really what it comes down to is defunding the police would be basically, we don't give them that much money,
Yep.
and we put those into other programs in the community that would help curb the need to have that much police presence, especially those in lower income communities where crime is more prevalent because they have been pushed out into those areas. And a lot of those areas have forever been, even when it was predominantly white, at least in Chicago, with different forms of immigrants during like the 20s through the 50s and everything, that they redlined them, and then that's just what happens. Those areas have always had prevalence of crime. The fact that they have just pushed those individuals who are more susceptible to oppression is more part of the systematic racism that has been going on. And I'm really glad that people are starting to realize that this can be done on, a congressional level also, because it's one thing, I mean, the last however many years people have been really pushing voting, and while that doesn't seem like shit right now, it is something that people still need to heavily do and start to contemplate doing, especially coming up and with local elections. I know that there's a handful of states yesterday that had some of their elections for local areas, I know that Iowa voted out there terribly, terribly racist.
Steve King is out.
Yeah, Steve King is out. Stephen King declared himself the only
Stephen
Steve King in Iowa now.
Oh yeah, that's right. Oh shit.
So with that in perspective, also not to just be like, a white person saying like, oh, you should just go vote, it'll fix it. It is a part of it. It is a small part of it, of everything in this circle. And I'm really glad that people are starting to realize that basically you're going for the knees that you didn't think that you were able to go for, but you are totally able to go for it, and you always have been, but nobody's been giving you that information until now.
Yeah, even to add on, you touched on a couple like really, really good points. Well, overall, yes, you've been really touching on a bunch of points that I've been thinking about and just been talking about where you talked about systemic racism and redlining. And, people are so quick to talk about Black on Black crime. And I'm just like, okay, so when you explain redlining and, Black people being able to get access to certain housing, and you group them all in a low income poverty area, and they're susceptible to oppression and things like that. You take all of their resources, take all of their means for income. They're going to do whatever they can to survive. So it's just like, I think like that argument in general, like that should just go out the window. And then 2, you also talked about voting. Also, there's I can't remember the official term for it because I'm just like, it's late at night. I just can't remember anything at this point. But I can't remember the term for it, but where they make it very difficult for Black people to go and vote. They do everything that they can to make sure that we don't get to the polls. And so
it's gerrymandering.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
voter suppression, gerrymandering. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm just like, I always encourage people to vote. I really try to encourage, my peers to vote. And because it's really important. And for me personally, coming from a generation where, someone as my great grandmother wasn't able to vote, I really take that personally. So I make sure, even in the midst of a pandemic, that I make sure I go out and vote when it comes our time. So, it's just things like that are important to keep in mind. But this picture is bigger than all of us. And once we kind of analyze the big picture and start trying to, like you said, just kind of going for the knees, then we can really fuck some shit up.
I love the visual. I love the visual.
We're keeping it consistent here.
Lizzie's all about these like murder podcast like theories.
Listen, I just always grew up watching those murder shows. Don't know why anyone let me do it, but here we are.
Yeah,
that's all that matters. That's all that matters. How to maneuver.
I wanted to follow up on your like voting thing, and I'm like, no, you kind of made the point. I just want to be like, I don't know. So my mom is generally like on the same page. She's old school Republican, but I sat and talked to her for an hour on why I'm like, hey, you got to vote for Bernie Sanders. There is no like question about this, but here is why you have to do this. And of course she's like, well, I don't know, and I don't really agree, but I hate Trump, and I'm not really a big fan of Biden either. And I'm like, well, okay, everything you just said, that works for me.
Right.
Also, you need to understand I'm going into this conversation like, cool, still show up and vote for Biden if he's the nominee. Like, just do it. It's better than current. It's better than fascism. It's better than fascism. But yeah, it's just, we have 2 options. Fascism, Joe Biden.
And this is literally where it's bad because the other contrast before was a whole ass idiot or Clinton.
Yeah, it's
made the wrong choice.
Savannah's in the chat, and she said Biden over fascism, make it a t-shirt. So we might. I don't know. I'll sell it, dude.
It's probably somewhere on Etsy by now, along with those crazy coronavirus shirts that
so mad.
the Karens made.
Why? How come every time I come up with an idea, somebody on Etsy is already doing it?
Because what's Karen doing? She's straight chilling at home.
Fucking Karens.
Being upset about, her downtown area being closed
Right.
because of the vote.
I need a haircut so I can talk to the manager with it. I do want to mention that Sav donated $50, so thank you, Savannah, for your support. Claps all around. But when it comes to voting, it always is this. So if people are voting, they are voting like, well, the Democratic side is always going to be on the side of Black people. And then I would say, yes, and there is some things that are happening on the Democratic side that are not necessarily in the favor of that if they are in favor of policing, if they are in favor of these tough on crime sort of things, which has been precedent in the past. Joe Biden has been a part of politics at the time when these laws were passed. So again, vote for Joe Biden, but it's better than fascism. But it's still like there is a contingency of the voting public that doesn't quite understand these points and how just saying go vote doesn't necessarily solve the issue. You need to stay aware and stay up to date with what's happening in politics and also hold these politicians accountable. That is primarily best done on the local level. You're not going to get FaceTime with Joe Biden and be like, I just want you to understand what policing is. And Joe's just going to be like, well, shake my hand and talk to me about trains. Dude, every time I watch like Parks and Rec and there's like an episode where Leslie Knope meets Joe Biden and I'm like, that's the American people and like how he would respond to us. Like that.
And we have seen it caught on like camera and audio. He was like, sounds right.
Yeah. So it's like, all right, I don't know if we're going to be able to communicate our best with Joe Biden to say, this is what is happening and this is what you need to understand as far as what we voted for. Like, we are voting for you because it is better than the alternative by a landslide, but that does not mean that it is solving these issues. I don't necessarily know if voting for Bernie Sanders would have like putting Bernie Sanders in the White House would have solved the issues. I do think that it is a much stronger way of solving that. So when I was talking to my mom about this, I kind of forgot where that was going, but I was also like, yeah, let me just throw Joe Biden under the bus for being Joe Biden. But
why not? Everyone else does it. He does it to himself. Why not?
He really does.
Yes.
Yeah,
he does.
So my mom is.
You're not Black, so
right.
Oh God.
Oh my gosh.
I walked into my work as soon as he said it, and I stopped and I looked at everyone. I was like, y'all just to hear that, and we had to because we had the tape and we had to rewind it, and we were like, he really just said that.
And one Charlemagne at that, I literally was.
Yeah, I saw who he was talking to.
Yeah.
I'm like, he really just said this shit to Charlemagne. Charlemagne, the God. They said that to him. I'm like, and then like this got to be on like the Shade Room or something. Let me just. Like, he really fucking said this shit.
What really astounded me is I walked in and one of the editors that was there said, well, he's like, I don't agree with that, but he's just not a great person to, who knows how to conversate and also have, give speeches. And I'm like, haven't we learned that we need somebody who knows how to articulate correctly to be leading the country? And
like that position would make sense.
Shit like this.
If he wasn't a presidential candidate, that'd be a fine position to take.
Okay, what's the job posting for this? Like, where's the job description? Let's be articulate in speeches. Where communication, 2 years minimum. Like, where is that? Where is that?
2 years minimum on some type of speech team at some point in your life. With literally, like you did it in like middle school. Whatever. We know you can probably speak.
You're hired.
Show me the LinkedIn. I will apply. I will connect.
Everyone, let's go endorse each other's.
I got a communication
abilities.
Yeah.
Girl, trust me, I know. I was on debate team. Let's go. We can endorse.
Let's go. He can't talk no more. He's him or the Cheeto. No.
And yet here are the two people who are speaking to us.
Oh my gosh.
Sorry to bring everybody down about our potential political people in the end.
Sorry.
I mean, it's a sad fact that, like, I mean, there's the fact that like there were not enough people that were voting for Bernie Sanders. So in the end, on the Democratic side, this is essentially what the Democratic people who are voting democratically wanted. As soon as everybody else dropped out, this is essentially what it came to. Which I don't know. That stems back from like what is your impression about all of these issues? Where do we stand on these issues? And the fact is, like, we are not as progressive on a lot of these issues as quote unquote progressives would say they are. It's very hard to say, yeah, like I believe that the police should stop brutalizing people and stop policing communities of color more often than they are policing other communities. But I also am gonna vote for Joe Biden. It's like it doesn't compute in the way that you're like actually showing up and getting involved in government. So I'm like, voting is, yes, important, and we all need to vote, and there needs to be a lot of activism around getting people to the polls, but there also needs to be that education of like, also don't vote for somebody who's saying they're going to donate or they're going to put $3 million in the budget for policing, or all of this money is going to go to police academy in Chicago rather than all of these schools that are underfunded and have fucking like 30 students in a classroom to one teacher. Like
they're then closing those types of schools and then making them into like, you know, luxurious condos that sell for $2 million.
Like shit does not compute.
They barely have textbooks. Like I've literally been yelling and screaming about CPS schools because they're literally getting the scraps and everybody just kind of going, well, at least they got something. And it's just like, it's so irritating because these kids are going to school. They got beat up fucking textbooks, and then they come in. They either got to move because the schools are so crowded. They either got to move them out to the suburbs or whatever the case may be. And then the suburban teachers are kind of going like, well, I don't know why you don't know this shit, but you're on your own. So we're just going to send you off to a special class till you figure that shit out. Because we're not going to teach you. We're not going to sit here and try to walk you through why you don't know what 2 and 2 is for. And it's just like, it's a constant cycle. Everything's a fucking systemic cycle. Everything's a fucking systemic
100%,
cycle.
100%.
Yeah.
It's irritating.
That's why it's so hard to change too. Is like you have you have this system that was built basically upon slavery 400 years ago, and it's just kind of been incremental change for 400 years. And like you still have people all over the country who have a medium to low understanding of these things, and you have people that are actively on the other side educating against progressive policies. I believe that the Daughters of the Confederacy building was burnt in the South from the protests. Don't quote me on that. I saw something on Twitter. That's why I stay off Twitter, because I'm like, I cannot confirm this. It's just some tweet. But
we got people down there.
Okay, yeah. Please confirm. I would love to know that was true. But to have like a group that is actively like the Confederacy ends and there's still a group passing along Confederate ideology to people, and then like, oh, we have this system that is happening around us, and it's like, oh well, you know, racism is gone and we don't have that anymore. And it's like, bro, it was built on that shit. Like that is how we built the system we have today. We have to change that.
I mean, I'm pretty sure that's what, I never saw it or listened to or whatever, but isn't that what Hamilton is about basically?
Oh, I never seen it. I heard it was really
I haven't seen it either.
So okay, we're all on the same page.
No,
I
did
see that one immigrant song, and I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
I think that's the gist of this whole thing.
Yeah, I want to see it so bad, but I heard it's really good. Really,
it is very
Disney
good.
Plus next month, I think they said.
Oh yeah,
yes,
right.
July.
Yeah,
on
but
Disney Plus.
The one issue a lot of people were bringing up was that Disney Plus maybe apt to edit certain things out.
No,
like they put God, what was that one movie? It was so cute. It was about that one. It was about a gay high school boy, and he loved Simon. That's what it was. Because I saw it in the theater, and I was like, oh my god, my heart. They put that on Disney Plus, but they edited out a lot of these scenes. That were depicting a lot of gay romance, even though that's like almost the entirety at the end of it, like what it's about. Because it's not wholesome, family friendly content. So that's what a lot of people are worried about when it comes to like Hamilton. So
that is a good point. I didn't even think about it. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
See, if we're still thinking like that, we got a long way to go.
Well, Disney, of course. Disney has a long way to go.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised that they spoke up about the Black Lives Matter issue. Them and Nickelodeon, I'm very proud of them for
Nickelodeon went hard.
Yeah.
Stop their programming and pause it for 8 minutes and 45 seconds, something like that.
Yeah, and there was a lot of backlash. There was I saw a screenshot of some woman, some white Karen commented on the post that Nickelodeon had on Facebook, and was like, I don't appreciate this. I think this is inappropriate to have a child watch. And their response was like, yeah, well, it's also reality a lot of kids actually has to deal with. So you
suck it up, buttercup.
Yeah. They're like, so sucks to suck, Karen. But also Savannah's over here saying that Disney does asking if Disney has a deep history of racism. I mean,
yes,
it does. It did originally start off very racist because it was during a very racist time.
Yeah. Honestly, I think a lot of it is a product of the time. It's just so ingrained in everything. Like we were saying, it's systemic. It's just how it was. So yes, there were some racist views from Walt Disney and everything. Also, keep in mind, this is coming from like a very avid Disney fan. Like there's a Toy Story alien right behind me. So keep that in mind. But it's just another instant showing how normalized a lot of this racism was. Like you look at a lot of those movies and they aren't new. These aren't like new things. They've been around forever.
Yeah, and I mean, going back to Amanda Seales, we like what we also have to realize now. She said in her live, she said, just imagine like the most ideal, perfect world where there is no racism or anything like that. And the reality of the situation is, yes, that's most of our country. Well, all of our country has been built on racism, but we don't have to accept that shit anymore. So like if we're literally putting things into play right now, yes, we might not reap the benefits of it, but maybe our children won't even reap the benefits of it. But maybe our kids will actually see something. And that's all I can ask for is I just can't sit back and tolerate this any longer. That's just how I feel.
Yeah.
I can agree to that. We are at like 9 p.m. So normally at this point we would close up the podcast part and we'll continue to chat on Twitch for a little while. So I just wanted, before we close out the podcast recording, do you guys want to add anything else to this? Any messages you want to say? Anything you want to promote? I know we didn't bring you on to promote anything specifically for yourselves, but
might as well. You're here. What's up?
You're here. Like promote yourselves if anybody wants to find you on the internet, and then we'll close it up and we'll keep chatting on Twitch if you're there. So Kia, do you want to go first?
Okay. So I mentioned before, I kind of touched on my YouTube channel. You can find me. I'm a videographer and photographer as well. My Instagram is bkaker Productions. So it's BKAKER Productions. And then my YouTube is also bkaker Productions. So it's BKAKER Productions. And I talk about a lot of social justice issues and basically, trying to find solutions and start conversations and things of that nature.
Yeah, if you want to find me on the internet, best to find me on Twitter. I'm Matty at the Disco, and I talk a lot about bands and everything. So if you love bands, I'm also working on some music things that'll come out eventually. I don't really want to put them out right now. So when things calm, I'll think about that. But if I wanted to say one thing to end this, I would say I hope people come out of all of this mess with a bit more empathy, with a bit more understanding for other people, with a bit more care for other people. You can't just care about yourself and your groups. It's really got to be a universal thing that you care about people. And if we get more empathy for people and continue to care for more people, I think a lot of the world's issues would be solved. Our country has a huge empathy problem over freaking everything, honestly, in my opinion. So please just give a crap about people. Please learn about people beyond yourself, and please support other people.
Amen.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's great.
All right, Kia, Matty, thank you for being here on the podcast. I'm going to play the outro now, and we'll keep chatting. I know Savannah's still in the chat, so we're going to keep chatting with Savannah and whoever else is here and whoever else.
There's 8 people here, I see, unless that is change. What's up, everyone?
Hey,
whomever you are.
So this music is going to play, and then we're going to hang out for a little longer. But from all of us here at the Emo Social Club, I got to play the song. I can't do it. Okay, all right, there we go. All right, I got the timing wrong. I don't know what I'm doing. From all of us here at the Emo Social Club podcast, I'm Brian.
I'm Lizzie.
And thank you for being here, and goodbye.